Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily News. I'm Nicholas Richardson. The battle against the floods continues. Today, the wave reached Brzeg on the island between the Oder River and the Oder Canal. Factories and the first floors of houses and apartment buildings are flooded. Residents were evacuated, but not everyone wanted to leave their homes. They were helped by the military. Now Wrocław is preparing for the floods. The city's authorities and services are calling on ordinary people to help build temporary flood barriers.
Lewim Brzezki in the Opolskie province. About 90% of the town is underwater. An evacuation operation began there yesterday. It was the same as in '97, the same, identical. The water went through the foundations to the house and it was over. And this time we didn't expect it because we were sure of the dams. Localities around Lewim Brzezki are busy preparing for the arrival of the floodwaters. In Brzeg, 15 kilometres away, thousands of people of all ages took part in strengthening the embankments. The situation is difficult at the moment, but all the time we are trying to strengthen our town as much as possible. We are constantly packing sand, taking those bags out as fast as we can. There is a very strong commitment of people, services. Everyone who can helps. The wave, which will pass through Brzeg and Oława, is expected to reach Wrocław in the next few hours. And these few hours will decide the fate of the city. Then there may be a retreat of the Brzeszczyca, Silesia and Oława, and there may be flooding, but this condition should subside, including the retreat of the culmination wave, so around Saturday it should be safe. The capital of Lower Silesia may be saved by a reservoir in Racibórz Dolny. This satellite image shows how the facility has filled with water in recent days. The people of Wrocław are not waiting with folded arms for the wave to pass. No one here wants a repeat of the 1997 tragedy. We are also helped by this sunshine, which is optimistic. I think people have so much faith and hope. With the rest you can see it. Everyone here has the strength to do it. Water has devastated a number of towns in southwestern Poland. Ruined homes, destroyed infrastructure, flooded cars, destroyed hospitals and schools. This is a real tragedy for thousands of people. The water flooded our auditorium, the boiler room, the gym, all underground rooms, the cafeteria, the kitchen. No one will be able to recover from these losses without government help. So far, the government has announced emergency aid of 10,000 zloty, up to 100,000 for repairs and up to 200,000 for rebuilding a house. A new proposal was made today. 12 months of loan instalments will be paid by us as a state through the Borrower Support Fund. Earlier, the head of the Climate Ministry announced the launch of a loan for flood victims. The proposal sparked outrage among people who lost everything. I also had a low-interest loan in '97, but all the commissions associated with taking out this loan documents, it was a horror. You had to hire a company because you couldn't do things yourself. Money here, money there. According to Law and Justice, all forms of support announced by the government are far from sufficient. A special edition of the government Strategic Investment Fund should be launched immediately. Yes, this government fund, which we have implemented many times. It is necessary to mobilise several billion zloty from the budget. So far, Donald Tusk has announced the allocation of 2 billion zloty to help flood victims. Considering the scale of destruction, it is clear that this amount is far from sufficient. Maciej Strug, TV Republika.
In order to protect his investment in this luxury resort in Zielenia Góra Cieplica, a local businessman, a real estate developer, allegedly ordered the demolition of a flood wall, causing flooding in Lower Silesia and endangering the lives and property of residents. Prosecutors are investigating whether a crime was committed, but the question remains why such an investment was allowed in a flood zone in the first place.
One certainly gets the impression that in Poland developers can do absolutely anything. Build on floodplains, make their own investments in places where these investments shouldn't be, and local governments allow them to do so. So I hope this matter will be clarified. Holiday Park and Resort Uzdrowisko Cieplica Zdrój Zielenia Góra is the proud investment of businessman Piotr Śledź. Last weekend it was flooded. The water flooded the parking lot of this investment.
Tereny depresyjne są znacznie tańsze.
Depressed areas are much cheaper. I'm surprised that building permits are issued for such areas because the responsibility for such floods is always borne by the one who buys them. And if he bases his business on depressions, i.e. these lowered areas, I'm surprised at the carelessness of the businessman, because it is more than certain that one day a tragedy will happen to them. But you can't turn your tragedies on the inhabitants of the surrounding areas, because that is just crookedness. Obtaining a zoning decision is particularly surprising in this case because the investment is located in a floodplain. The District Prosecutor's Office in Zielona Góra is conducting an investigation into the breach of a flood embankment in Zielenia Góra, Cieplica, on the 15th of September 2024 by digging a channel in front of the flood embankment with an excavator, which caused the flooding of Sobieszowska Street and nearby residential buildings. The works were carried out in two places. In the first place, the work was done by covering the area around the buildings located on the site with earth, instead of covering them with sandbags, which the company did not have. This was done to protect the buildings from flooding.
Jeżeli to rzeczywiście jest tak, że
If this is really how it is described in the media, then I hope this businessman will not get out of jail for a dozen years because he knowingly endangered people's lives. This is just something unbelievable, to dig up a flood wall during a flood. I know that in Poland there is a certain group of people who consider themselves completely above the law, and these situations just need to be monitored because it is unbelievable behavior. It is like some oligarchy, like Russia. This is a situation that is simply unbelievable. It is difficult to wrap one's head around such a thing that happened, that one person, in order to save his hotel, led to the flooding of many houses and the loss of property of many families. The Polish businessman from Lower Silesia, if proven guilty by the prosecutor's office, faces 1 to 10 years in prison for causing a universally dangerous event that threatens the life or health of many people or property of a great magnitude. Edyta Hołdyńska, TV Republika.
Yesterday pages, today radios. Terrorist Hezbollah in Lebanon has come under attack in one of the most improbable special forces operations in history. As a result, Israel eliminated up to several thousand militants in pinpoint attacks without a single shot being fired.
It defies imagination of the most improbable action movie scenarios. At the same moment, several thousand people affiliated with Hezbollah received a message on personal pages. A few seconds later, the devices exploded. To understand what happened, you have to go back a few months to the Israeli attacks on Hamas and Hezbollah leaders in Lebanon. Tracking them was possible thanks to the terrorists' cell phones. It was then that the terrorists decided to change their form of communication to the old, but in theory safer, pagers.
What experts are saying is that this shipment of pagers most likely was targeted before it was delivered. Somebody in the supply chain managed to get to these pagers and rig them with very small explosives before they were sent to Hezbollah.
As a result, thousands of fighters in Lebanon and Syria have been carrying miniature remote-fired bombs on their belts and in their pockets for several months. Yesterday afternoon, at the same moment, they all exploded. Officially, no one has admitted to the attack, but it is clear that Israel is behind it. The pagers were ordered from a factory in Taiwan, but through an intermediary in Hungary that exists only on paper. Direct links are hard to find. This is a speciality of Mossad, Israel's intelligence service.
The United States did not know about, nor was it involved in these incidents, and we're still gathering the information and gathering the facts.
More than 4,000 people were injured in the attacks. Several hundred are in critical condition. Among the wounded is the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon. Hezbollah has been funded by Tehran for years. For several weeks, Israel has been preparing for a larger-scale confrontation when it comes to Hezbollah. And this action by Mossad, as far as these exploding pages are concerned, may be the next stage of preparations that portend imminent escalation. According to reports from the Middle East, another attack was carried out today. This time there was an explosion of radios, which, according to Reuters, were to be ordered at a similar time as the pages. According to analysts, these attacks could be a preparation for Israel's offensive on the Hezbollah-controlled part of Lebanon. Kamil Czeska, TV Republika.
This will be a meeting at a symbolic place for the American-Polish community known as the American Częstochowa. Donald Trump and Andrzej Duda will meet in Pennsylvania at the National Shrine of Our Lady of Częstochowa on Sunday. There will be some time to talk about Poland and Poles living overseas, but also about the most important issues for Poles and Americans: family, security and cooperation.
The National Shrine of Our Lady of Częstochowa in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, called America's Częstochowa. Donald Trump and Polish President Andrzej Duda are expected to meet here as early as Sunday. The Republican candidate for the US President, Trump, has already announced his visit to this important place for the Polish community. The Polish president will also be there. If it comes to the acceptance of President Trump's invitation, and there is such a meeting, then of course there will be a conversation, and the agenda will be the same topic that accompanies the UN, that is, security issues, issues of strengthening Poland's position here.
Strengthened by our shared cultural values.
When Donald Trump was president of the United States, he was very interested in Poland. He bet on strengthening the eastern flank, and met with President Andrzej Duda many times. His visit to Poland and speech at Krasiński Square in Warsaw has already gone down in history. Donald Trump spoke beautifully about Poland and Poles.
Historia Polski to historia ludzi, którzy nigdy nie utracili nadziei, których nie dało się złamać.
Today, Trump, as a candidate for president of the United States, does not change his views on Poland. He is still very interested in Polish affairs, including the security of our country and our region. Nearly 10 million Americans claim Polish ancestry. The vast majority of them have the opportunity to vote in elections. Americans of Polish descent make up 3% of the total US population and make up the 8th largest ethnic group. So, they are a very important group of voters. Those already born overseas and those who immigrated in the 1980s and 1990s. They remember communism, and these are the ones who are a little bit more interested in the situation in Poland. They look at all these threats to Poland that are lurking somewhere out there. They also look at Poland's role in the European Union, and they are tying the presidential election in the US more strongly to what is happening here in Poland. Kamala Harris is also well aware of this. The Democratic candidate has already spoken about Poland and the Polish community living in Pennsylvania in the presidential debate.
Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
The Polish people's votes in the US are important and, as in the rest of America, divided.
I think it's the truth. If Putin gets a hold of Ukraine, and it's okay, he's going for.
I know if Trump gets in, we wouldn't have a war. I like his.
The campaign is gaining momentum. During a meeting with Philadelphia voters, Kamala Harris discussed abortion, women's rights, and minorities. At a rally in the state of Michigan, Donald Trump spoke about the economy and security, also in a personal context.
Dangerous business, however, being president. It's a little bit dangerous. It's, they think race car driving is dangerous. No. They think bull riding, that's pretty scary, right? No. Take a look at what happened.
After the attempt on Donald Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the recent attempted assassination on a Florida golf course, Kamala Harris called Trump. Harris asserted that regardless of one's views, violence has no place in America, although the harsh rhetoric against Trump will probably not change until Election Day itself. Marcin Szewczak, Republika.
That's the news. Thank you for watching, and from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.